Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, the first Michigan Power Hour every Wednesday at noon. Take a deeper dive into this Michigan program. This is already a team that we talk a lot about, right? We're going to do the game previews every single Sunday. We're going to react to every single game on Saturday afternoons. That being said, I think this episode will, one, allow us to talk about this Michigan program as fans, which we are, but I think more importantly, dive a little bit more into the weeds of this Michigan program. We got a lot to talk about, right? Game week, Fresno State, obviously a quarterback battle. But I think more importantly, you have a new defensive coordinator. You have a new offensive coordinator. You have a lot of new faces all over this football field. Want to get into what we're looking for. But I think most importantly, who we're most excited about, fired up to get into it. Now, before we do it, as always, a massive shout out to the Michigan fans. This is why we're doing the Power Hour, because the amount of support the Michigan fans have shown the boys really in the middle of summer when nobody's talking ball. You guys are checking us out, talking with us in the comment section. We can't thank you guys enough. So if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But, I think most importantly, would love to hear what you're most excited for, what players you're most excited for, and then how you think this quarterback battle should go Saturday night. And Bill, that's where we'll start this quarterback battle. From what Sherrone Moore said in the press conference, it does sound like they're going to name a starter and let that starter rock and roll Saturday night. If it was between playing one quarterback in one half and one quarterback the second half, or just naming a starter and letting them ride through four quarters, what would you be leaning to here?
I think in almost all situations, I'd almost always lean just ride with your starter. I thought 2022 in Michigan did the KJJ thing. I think all the fans, all the people who've seen football knew that Cade wasn't going to be the guy. He was so far below where JJ was. So I found that slightly frustrating that was even made a thing. Okay, we appreciate what Cade did in the 2021 year, but that doesn't mean he's the starting quarterback when he is light years behind J.J. McCarthy.
It was an appreciation start. I think every Michigan fan knew it. Hey, we appreciate what you did for us, Cade. We're going to let you trot out there week one. But
it can't happen. And frankly, in this case, I'm a little bit more okay with it probably just because you don't have that clear winner. And again, if we see it pretty quickly, I don't want to see it drag on. I think once you have your guy, you got to go with it. No one likes seeing the two quarterback situations, unless it's something like the Chris League Tim Tebow situation where you use Alex Orji only in running down situations, short down situations, if Davis Warren happens to be the guy. Otherwise, the starter's the starter.
Yeah, I think all Michigan fans most Michigan fans that are in the comment section or that we've talked to are kind of on the same page where we don't want to see the two quarterback system. We want to see Michigan, at least before the Texas game, pick a starter and rock with that starter. And I'm okay with it taking time because this is a decision that you want to get right. So let's preview the two quarterbacks that we might see. Let's start with Alex Orji. And Dill, I know you're an Alex Orji guy. If Alex Orji trots out week one, Saturday night, Fresno State, what are you most excited for?
I mean, just make me immediately think that, he can throw the ball better than everyone kind of thinks he can. And again, we've seen him. We've seen him make good throws in spring games going back to the 2022 game. I thought in this game, he looked really clean in terms of what he was doing or operating, and he was getting the ball out pretty quickly. Again, you saw those flashes of inaccuracy, which certainly that probably is at the end of the day going to be the gap that he needs to bridge to be this full-time starter at the University of Michigan. But if he comes out and starts and it's pretty clear that he's the guy, it'll make me think, A, he's figured that part out, and then B, Michigan has an ultra-high ceiling on the 2024 season.
That's kind of my take with Alex Orji is if we do see Alex Orji trot out as quarterback one, he's got to have some sort of chops pushing the ball down the field because Sherrone Moore would not trot out a quarterback, especially when you look at the history of how they've selected quarterbacks. They've gone with the quarterbacks that give you the most consistency. And so if Alex Orji trots out as quarterback one, you can kind of get the sense that, he earned it through consistency during fall camp. And then what I would personally be most excited for is what is this rushing attack going to look like for Michigan? Because we think this Michigan offensive line is going. No, I'm even more optimistic about the Michigan offensive line now than I was 3 weeks ago because you're hearing about some serious competition and depth that's emerging on this offensive line unit. We think the offensive line is going to be good. You got multiple running backs who are extremely talented. And then you couple that with one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the country running the floor, having the football in his hands. This running attack is going to be so multiple. It's going to be so diverse. I think that's what I'd be most excited about. And then for Davis Warren, Dill, if Davis Warren trots out there as quarterback one, what I'm most excited for is the pass catchers on the outside. Because if I think they go with Davis Warren, we kind of had this conversation a lot. They're going to go with the quarterback that best supports what they want this offense to look like. And if it's going to be Davis Warren, I think that means that they're very high on these pass catchers on the outside. Tyler Morris has gotten a lot of buzz. Samaj Morgan has gotten a lot of buzz. Marlon Klein has gotten a lot of buzz. So if I do see Davis Warren trot out, and I'm probably personally an Alex Orji guy at heart as well, but I'm just kind of rooting for the best quarterback to win the job. If it's Davis Warren, fire me up for these pass catchers, because it might be an offense that has a passing attack that's going to be a lot better than a lot of people around the country think.
And again, I think you see the way Michigan's trying to recruit and maybe kind of move themselves in that direction of being a little bit more balanced than what they've been in the past couple of years, where you don't have games like the Penn State game. And that, yeah, it's fun when you get to run the ball however many times straight you got to run it against Penn State and still win a football game. But again, I think a much more sustainable path to playing good offense is being a little bit more balanced than Michigan's been in the past couple of years. Now, obviously, JJ's provided them that in big moments.
Yes.
It hasn't been wildly consistent. I think, again, you bring in Brady Hart in the 2026 class. You bring in some of these talented wide receivers like an Andrew Marsh in the 2025 class. I think they are going to try to go in that direction. So, again, if you see Davis Warren go out there, I think you're kind of right. We probably will see more balance. It won't be so skewed towards, Michigan's just going to run the ball and not really threaten you in the air. I think it'll be balanced.
And Kirk Campbell's been relatively open, like, hey, we're going to try to open up this offense going forward. And so I think that would be what I'm most excited for. All right, Dale, let's go to our second thing. And this is where I want to hear people in the comment section. Most exciting, not non-quarterback. You can't cop out and go with the quarterback. Most exciting, because I know dang well you go with Alex Orji. Oh, yeah. Most exciting player on offense for Michigan Saturday night. Who you got?
100% Amarian Walker. And I only say that because I kind of think I know what Tyler Morris is, and I'm such a huge fan of what he can be. I thought, again, a guy who maybe runs as good a routes as we've seen in Michigan in a long time, I think has more athleticism. We got to see a little bit of that in the Rose Bowl. Really excited for him to kind of take over and be that number one guy. But Amarian Walker, I mean, just the things you've heard about how athletic he is, and kind of in the conversation of bringing some new things to this Michigan offense, being able to attack down the field with a little more consistency when you have that height or that size and speed kind of combination that he has. And if he's kind of what they've cracked him up to be at times, he's certainly a guy who I just think can add a little bit of spice to this Michigan offense that we haven't seen.
That was a curveball for me. I did not think you go with Amarian Walker. I'm going to go with two then, because I thought you'd go with one. So I'm
flash that depth chart and I see the name. I'm like,
yeah, I'm going to go one.
Explosive.
I'm going to go one Samaj Morgan. You talk about explosiveness. Like, there's multiple different ways you can be explosive. One is pushing the ball down the field. The other is getting the football in playmakers' hands in space. And from what you're hearing about Samaj Morgan and what you saw from him as a true freshman, Dill, when's the last time Michigan's had a wide receiver that is that dynamic with the football in space? Nothing really comes to mind. I'm sure I'm kind of missing on some guys, but Samaj Morgan has that chance to really be that difference maker with the football in his hands. And I think the second one is Marlon Klein. I mean, if you got Colson Loveland, who is the best tight end in the country, saying Marlon Klein is the biggest, fastest, strongest tight end in the room, Marlon Klein is going potentially be an absolute hammer for this Michigan offense. Those are the two guys that I'm looking for in offense. Still going to the defensive side of the football. Let's start with, what do we want to see? What's the biggest storyline? If you're a Michigan fan and you're saying, all right, what do we need to see to make us think that Michigan's a national championship contender once again? What would your answer be to that question?
I think the only thing that can truly be answered in this football game is what the secondary looks like. I just kind of look at where Fresno can attack Michigan. I just don't see them being able to beat Michigan up front on the defensive line. And I know we certainly want to see the depth. You want to see what guys like Trey Pierce or Eno Etta, some of those like second string guys sort of look like for this Michigan team. But I think I look at Fresno State. They're a very capable passing attack. I mean, Mikey Keene's a very, very sharp quarterback. Maybe not the biggest arm in the world, but he gets the ball out on time, really has a good grasp of that offense they like to run. And again, Michigan does have to replace some guys in the secondary, some guys who are absolute pillars of everything Michigan kind of built itself on. Rod Moore, Mikey Sanders still, Josh Wallace, obviously only a transfer, but had a really, really nice year for that Michigan team. I'm really excited to see, is this secondary gelled and can they communicate and pick guys up and pass routes off? All those things you saw Michigan do so well last year. Can you roll that back?
I think the fascinating storyline here is that you're kind of just you brought in a lot of transfers to add some competition and depth to the room. But from what it sounds like, it's all guys that were on this team last year. Jair Hill is going to start opposite Will Johnson. Zeke Bear is going to start a nickel, and sounds like Quentin Johnson is going to be that first safety out. Now, I think you'll see some pretty heavy rotation in terms of that second safety. Look, Makari Page ain't leaving the field. They were talking about giving Makari Page the green dot on defense. I mean, I think that's kind of shows you how important Makari Page is to this Michigan defense. I think one of the more underrated safeties that you see in the country. But Quentin Johnson's probably going to get rotated with a few of the young safeties. But you talk about continuity, like it's there. I think a lot of people on paper look at all the transfers. A lot of the starters in this Michigan secondary are going to be guys that were on the team in 2023. My biggest storyline, it doesn't have to do with – that's a lot, but not a lot. My biggest storyline is what this Wink Martindale defense looks like. And again, I don't think there's going to be drastic changes, right? Wink Martindale's been pretty vocal. Hey, we're going to keep what's been working for this Michigan defense the last couple of years, but I'm going to put my own twist on it. I think we know what the twist is going to be. It's going to be a little bit more aggressive. I don't think he'll show almost any of his cards in this football game, seeing how we play Texas at home next week. Getting a vibe for how Wink Martindale wants this defense to look is probably going to be my storyline on defense heading into this one.
Yeah, I mean, on a macro level, that's certainly up there. I'm excited to see how everything works when you have this much change, like what's different, what's the same. Certainly, I mean, I haven't felt this way in a little while, probably since 2021. That's like the year that things started to change. And then since then, it's kind of been like, oh, you kind of know what Michigan's going to be. You know what they're going to be about. You kind of knew everything. I mean, it's really exciting to kind of come into a year with like a little bit of freshness. Not that it wasn't great coming into the year, being like the big dog, if you will, and certainly expecting to win a national championship as they did in 23. But waking up with a little bit of unknown, it certainly gets going a bit.
Well, 100%. 21.5-point favorites, and I'm fired up as ever. Last thing we got to talk about most exciting player on defense. Who you got here? I certainly know mine.
I think I got TJ Guy. I'm so excited to see what TJ Guy can do. He's like a guy I saw a couple reps in the spring game of just being wildly explosive, looking so good. Jayshon Barham, he'd be my guy kind of in a sense, but I know how good he is. I don't really need to see anything from him. TJ Guy is the kind of guy who's just been sitting behind some really, really good players. I can't wait to see what he's going to bring.
TJ Guy was my number 2 choice. Jayshon Barham was my number 1 choice. So we're kind of on the same page there, Dale. TJ Guy, you talk about like guys who have stood out in the offseason. You talk about the depth that we have to replace with guys like Jalen Harrell and Braden McGregor going to the league. I think you got your answer with TJ Guy, a guy that's trusted the process, transformed his body. He's going to get a lot of work in this game. I'm fired up to see him get some live bullet reps. I'm going Jayshon Barham. Whenever you get comp to Devin Bush and then said that you're a more athletic, bigger version of Devin Bush,
I hit that.
If I see that, I mean, I'm through the roof. And I think this linebacker duo sounds to be one of the best in the country, where Ernest Hausman, one of the more underrated players from that Michigan defense a year ago, but then you're pairing him up with Jayshon Barham and a Wink Martindale defense that is going to – when I said I'm interested to see the Wink Martindale defense, I'm specifically most excited to see how they use a guy like Jayshon Barham, who is an elite off-ball linebacker from everything that we saw from Maryland, but also what we're hearing out of spring and fall camp. But more importantly, this guy is way more than just an off-ball linebacker. He's kind of a chess piece in the front seven. You can fire him in the A and B gaps. You can blitz him off the edge. How does Wink Martindale – it almost seems unfair that Wink Martindale comes in year one and gets a guy like Jayshon Barham. How is he going to use Jayshon Barham? That's what I'm most excited for. Dill, we'll close it out there. We'll be recapping this one Saturday night. Really excited for it. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.